an agent, negotiated the terms, which include a player option on the last year of that deal. So he could become a free agent or opt out and then re-sign another deal with the Sixers, but not before that 26-27 season.
But real quick, I mean, that's rare, especially at this level, right, for guys to be doing their own deals without an agent?
That is rare at any level in the NBA. Absolutely, Sage.
So listen, give him credit, Embiid getting it done with big numbers. Let's talk about Ben Simmons. He's been the hottest topic in Philadelphia this offseason. How, if at all, Woj, does Embiid's new deal affect Ben's future in Philadelphia?
Well, it certainly shows, that Philadelphia is going to continue to build around Joel Embiid and build their roster around him. I think largely as a singular force. Whether or not Ben Simmons remains in their future, is going to be, certainly the short-term future is going to be decided on whether Philly can find a trade for him prior to training camp. They struggle to do so largely because they're asking for a lot for Ben Simmons, and you understand why. Certainly what he's accomplished. And remember, he's got 4 years guaranteed left on his contract. So, certainly they can bring Ben Simmons back, and they're preparing for the idea that they may need to bring him back to Philadelphia to start the season because they don't have a trade yet for him. They've not had great traction lately on finding a deal for Simmons. And so they're going to have to find a way together to work without a trade to bring him back. And then perhaps you hope you build back his trade value. He gets off to a good start. He plays well. And then perhaps you look at a trade once the season gets going, maybe closer to the trade deadline, maybe he spends another year. But there's certainly interest on both the Sixers side and Ben Simmons side to find a new home for him.
4 years is a long time to have left on that contract, so we'll see. What's been a very busy offseason for the Sixers. Remember, they re-signed Danny Green and Furkan Korkmaz, also added Andre Drummond in free agency, so we'll see what next season brings. News coming out real quick with Christmas Day games being announced September, October. We're 4 months away. What can you tell us about the Christmas Day slate, Woj?
Well, Trae Young and the Hawks, I'm told, returning to Madison Square Garden, where I think Trae Young branded himself as something of a villain in New York.
Yep.
And he'll be back at the Garden against the Knicks on Christmas Day. And then really the battle of the Titans, East and West. The Brooklyn Nets headed to L.A. to take on LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and of course now Russell Westbrook.
So the full schedule will be released today on The Jump, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Lots of good ones to look forward to in just a couple of months. Adrian Wojnarowski with the latest. Thank you. Ahead on SportsCenter, Stephen A. Smith. He reacts to Joel Embiid's new deal, why he says Embiid has earned every penny of this new contract. It was a career year for the big man. Again, the average, that was the highest points per game average for a center, 28.5, since Shaq did it. 28.7 in the 2000-2001 season, so a full 2 decades, as Embiid became the first Sixers player with at least 28 per game since Allen Iverson, AI, in the 06-07 season, and only the 5th player in the illustrious history of the Sixers franchise. Let's bring in our senior NBA insider, Adrian Wojnarowski, live on SportsCenter. We all know one of the only knocks on Embiid is that he is injury prone. But this new deal, I mean, it leads us to believe that Philly isn't worried about that anymore, right? What can you tell us?
Yeah, and I think the contract, as Ramona Shelburne reported, does not include injury protections that are built into the deal like his last max contract was. I think a big part of that was he's largely been healthy. He certainly avoided significant injury over the course of the last several seasons. He missed 11 games before the playoffs with that meniscus injury this year, that he played with in the playoffs, that he's not going to need surgery on this offseason. And so the commitment that Philly has made to Embiid through the 2027 season, it certainly shows you, that they believe, listen, there's always risk involved with any player, and especially someone who's had a history like Embiid. But this is the cornerstone player for this franchise, and certainly, one of the top handful of players in all of the NBA.
Yeah. Woj, did I hear from you that he negotiated his own deal this time?
He did, and this was a contract that he did without an agent, negotiated the terms, which include a player option on the last year of that deal. So he could become a free agent or opt out and then re-sign another deal with the Sixers, but not before that 26-27 season.
But real quick, I mean, that's rare, especially at this level, right, for guys to be doing their own deals without an agent?
That is rare at any level in the NBA. Absolutely, Sage.
So listen, give him credit, Embiid getting it done with big numbers.
Already we got about half the show set in motion. Joel Embiid gets a big max extension. We'll talk about that. And Tim Tebow cut by the Jacksonville Jaguars. No pleasure in saying that, but there's a lot to discuss. First takes in the house. The whole crew is here. Holla at your boys and girls.
A lot of people have kind of forgotten who I am.
Stephen A., you said it. So much breaking news today on a Tuesday. Good day, everybody.
I thought it was a quiet day in the middle of August. What was I?
No, sir. Plenty to get to. Good morning to Max. Good morning, Stephen A. Guys, let's get it. So let's start with the breaking news out of Philadelphia. Sixers star center Joel Embiid is finalizing a 4-year, $196 million Supermax contract extension. That, according to Ramona Shelburne, the extension keeps Embiid under contract with the Sixers through the 26-27 season for a total of $261 million. Embiid, who represented himself in the negotiations, became eligible for a Supermax extension this summer after finishing second in MVP voting and second-team All-NBA with averages of more than 28 points, 10 rebounds in 51 regular season games. This is a fully guaranteed deal, and he'll have a player option on the final year of the deal. So Stephen A., clearly no concerns about his health. Tell me this, how big of a deal is this for the Sixers?
Well, Molly, the first thing I would tell you is that that's not true. There are some concerns about his health. It's just that it can't matter to the Philadelphia 76ers. He's such a superstar caliber player. If it were not for durability issues, we'd be calling him the best big man in basketball instead of Jokic in Denver. We all know how surreal, how big time Joel Embiid is. His game is just something special to behold, and there's no question about it. But then when you take into account his personality and how magnetic it is, he's willing to talk trash to opponents. He's willing to engage the fan base and get them, rallied and involved. He's an incredibly inspirational player as well. He's the cornerstone of this franchise, no question about it. And when you take into account what transpired during the playoffs, what you see during the regular season, there's no fall off in the playoffs. Whereas with Ben Simmons, you looked at him, and even though you know what he's capable of doing, and this dude is a jump shot away from being the quality of a LeBron James, but he just doesn't have that. And then he ran away from the basketball when it really, really counted in the postseason. That's something else that elevated the stature of Joel Embiid in the eyes of the Philadelphia 76ers organization. So this was a foregone conclusion. They absolutely had to give him this money. He's well deserving of it. He's the cornerstone of their franchise. He's a star. Everything goes through him in the city of Philadelphia, and they would have it no other way. Congratulations to him. It's well deserved. Injuries or no injuries, you had to lock him up because he is everything to this organization.
Embiid, were it not for the injuries, you could say he's the most perfect center ever, right? He checks every single box except for the injuries. He's like Olajuwon is amazing, right? But Embiid's even bigger. Like he's a taller, he's a genuine 7-foot wide body who can play with his back to the basket, who can shoot from the outside, who can play defense even in the modern NBA at an elite level. And he's a big. What can this guy not do on the floor except for stay healthy? Because had he played a few more games, Stephen A., maybe a half dozen more games this year, he's the MVP instead of Jokic. He's also a great defender. He's great on both ends of the floor. And let me put this in perspective for you. How big time is Embiid? Remember when I was proposing a Damian Lillard trade to the Sixers? Lillard is a superstar. Embiid is the one in that combination. Embiid is still the best player on that team, even if Lillard is on that team. Now, I know the stat I'm about to give you, and Hembo tweeted it out earlier today. I saw this a couple days ago in Sixers Twitter. The stat I'm about to give you is a little unfair. because all the retired players' points per 36 minutes averages, Stephen A., include the declining years of their career. Like, if you look at MJ's, that includes his years with the Wizards. That wasn't MJ anymore. He averaged only 20 points his final season. He was 57,000 years old. Embiid hasn't reached that stage yet. But do you know who the all-time leader points per 36 minutes in the NBA is? It would happen to be Embiid, almost a full point ahead of Michael Jordan. He ain't going to end his career that way.